Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 48 of Matt Chat. I'm Melissa Ross, your mindset coach with Rise to Wellness. Welcome this evening, friends. Tonight we are talking about choices. And we're going to invite our friends on while we're talking. We're talking about choices, and you'll see that the title asks the question, do we all have them? I want you to stop and think about that for a minute. Do we all have choices all the time? Do we always all have choices? It's an interesting question. I think a lot of us, would answer it differently, depending on our state of mind, depending on where we are at the time, depending on what we're feeling and what we're going through. We would all answer that differently. So if you're here, please do put hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, put hashtag replay. And if you're here, let me know that you're here so that I can give you a shout out. And please do write in the comments whether you think we have choices. I just have a few more friends on here, but I want to read your comments and find out what you think. Do you think we all have choices at all times? Some people think we have choices, but only when there are choices, not all of the time, not in certain circumstances. All right, friends. Let's check out the comments. Emilio is here. Welcome, Emilio. It says, hello, my friend. It's Daniela. Hello, Daniela. Welcome, my friend. Patricia is watching. Welcome. Daniela says, yes, we all have choices about almost everything. She says hashtag live as well. Neil is here. Welcome, Neil. Yeah, I agree, Daniela. We all have choices at all times. And I think that at times in our life, when we're in stress and when we're dealing with certain things, and especially when we're feeling down or when we're struggling with mental health issues, we get into a deep, dark place where we feel like we don't have choices with anything in our lives. And really what it comes down to is our mindset. Is our mindset when we answer the question, do we have choices? Neil says, hashtag live. Sometimes it seems like the only choices we have are forced on us. That's right. And we're going to get into that. Neil always jumps before I get to what I'm talking about. Raman is here. He says, hi. Hello, my friend. So it's funny. I teach this to all of the kids. I teach this to my own kids, and I teach this to all of the kids in my yoga classes. And what I often say is, you might not like the choices, but you do have choices. And so Neil hit the nail on the head there when he says sometimes it seems like the only choices we have are forced on us, because if we're in a low mindset, if we're in a dark place, or if we're in a negative mindset, then sometimes we can feel like we don't have choices, like the world is against us and things are piling up on us and we have to do something, or why do I have to do that? Why are bad things happening to me? Why do I have to go through this? And if we could just change our mindset, if we could just shift our mindset, we would see that we do have choices. We might not like what the choices are, but we have choices. And if we can shift our mindset to see those choices and see what those choices are in that particular circumstance, then we might be able to work through the issue or work through the problem in a more positive way, in a more positive mindset, and in a more productive way by comparing those two choices, even though we perceive them to be bad choices or choices that we don't like. We will be able to compare those two things and find the path forward. Find a path forward that we can live with and that we can deal with, because we are able to step back from the emotion of it and step back from a negative mindset into the positive mindset, to be able to compare those two choices, even though we perceive them as maybe negative choices or things that we don't like. Sam is here. He says hello. He says hashtag live. And so I want to talk to you a bit about that as it surrounds mental health, my friends. So most of you know my story and where I came from and how I got started as a life coach. And that story stems from a lot of postpartum depression, a lot of anxiety, a long time ago, 9 years ago, when my daughter was born. And at that time, if you had asked me if I had choices, it would have been a resounding no, because I was in that low mindset. I was in a deep, dark place. I was struggling to find my way out of that negativity, and find my way out of that depression and that anxiety. And I think part of the thing that finds us in an anxious state and in a state of anxiety is thinking that we don't have choices, thinking that the world is crashing in on us, and things are happening to us, and we don't have choices, and we don't have control. There's that word again, friends, control. Robert Moore is here, and he says, "You have a story, LOL." Robert Moore is one of my business mentors in Toronto, and the publisher of my first co-authorship, and he knows all too well what my story is and how I got started. And in fact, the first time I told my story, I was on Robert J. Moore's stage in a 5-minute speaker contest, and I won that speaker contest, telling everyone in that room my story for the very first time. That was a year ago this past summer, about a year and a half ago that was. So I'm very grateful to Robert for my start. So lots of times I'm going to go back to that word, control. Lots of times it comes down to control when we're looking at choices and when we're thinking about whether or not we have choices in a situation. And that's what anxiety is. Anxiety is a loss of control, or feeling like we have a loss of control. So if we are in a negative place and we're in that depression and that anxiety, and we're already feeling like we have a loss of control, do you think that we can feel choices or think about choices or feel like we have choices? When I was down in that place, when I was in that depression, I never felt like I had choices. I felt like I had to do this or had to do that, or things were happening to me, not for me, and that there weren't choices to be made. I was forced to do what needed to be done, and I didn't have any choice. I want you to think, I want all of my friends to think about how many times you've said, I didn't have any choice, or I don't have any choice in this. I didn't have any choice. That's what I had to do, right? Or I don't have any choice. I guess I'm just going to have to do this. How many times do we all say that? I know there's lots of you out there, my friends. You're all just like me. We've all said that from time to time. And when I want you to catch yourself, this is your homework for this week. We're going to wrap up soon. I want you to catch yourself this week. This is your homework. I want you to sit back and think about how many times during this week, this Thursday to next Thursday to our next video, how many times do you sit back, or do you say to someone, I didn't have any choice, or I don't have any choice, I'm going to have to just do this? How many times do you say that to yourself, or inside of your head? There's just no choice. I'm going to have to do this. My back is up against a wall, and I have no choice. I'm being forced to do this. How many times do you have that language? I want you to notice how many times you have that language. I want you to write that down on a piece of paper or in your journal. And I want you to see if you can shift your mindset around that. Okay? So number one is identify where you think that you have no choices, or where you say I have no choice, or my back is up against a wall and I'm being forced to do this. Okay? Where do you feel like the control is gone and you have no choices? Number two is write that down on a piece of paper or in a journal. And number three is to take a look at that situation. Reread what you've written down on that piece of paper or in that journal, and see if you can find what the choices actually are in that situation. Whether you like them or not, whether you feel good about the choices or not, figure out what the choices are. There's always going to be at least two choices. There may be more. You could have 3 or 4 choices. But figure out what at least 2 choices are in that situation where you're not feeling like you're in control. You're feeling like your back's against the wall, or you're being forced to do something. And really take a look at those 2 choices and figure out, which of these 2 choices can I live with? Can I move forward with? Can I feel okay with? I'm going to point out to you too, friends, the shirt that I have on today, it talks about this too. Let's see if you can read it. I don't know if you can read it. No, it's in cursive. You won't be able to read it. It says, feel the fear, do it anyway. So when you take a look at those choices and you feel like those choices are not anything that you can live with. You feel like your back is against the wall and you're forced to do something, or you're being forced to move in a certain way. I want you to remember to feel the fear and do it anyway, and take a look at those fearful choices and figure out which one you can implement and be okay with. Which one can you live with? Which one can you move forward with? And maybe, just maybe, when you're in that positive mindset and you're in that decision making and sitting with those choices, maybe, just maybe, something will pop up, some idea will pop up into your head, and some way around it that you can live with will come to you. I'm saying maybe, friends, but I know it's going to happen. So I wish you all luck with that homework this week. I really want you to sit down and do that this week. Notice that this week. And please do drop a comment in the video here if you're watching the replay later, or if you want to come back midweek and drop a comment in the video here. Let me know how you're doing with that. If you don't want to comment in public, please do send me a private message. Let me know how you're doing with that homework, and let's work through your choices together. I wish you all a good night tonight. This has been Melissa Ross, your mindset coach with Rise to Wellness, and this was episode 48 of Mat Chat, where we talked about choices, whether or not we have them. Have a good night, my friends. Take care.